Good morning. You are watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and Jamarl Thomas. Jamarl Thomas is indeed with us today, but he's running a tad late on his previous show. I'll expect him imminently. Sitting to the left side of your screen, if you're watching, is producer Robbie West. Good morning, Robbie.
Morning. How y'all doing?
Okay. All right. Little annoyed at FedEx, but we could talk about that some other time. Also annoyed at Joe Biden. We'll talk about that. Hunter Biden says that his dad is dying, which of course brings up some questions, some splaining to do that the DNC probably should have, but probably won't. We'll be talking about the civil war in the Democratic Party. We have State Representative Francesca Hong is almost certain to become the Democratic nominee for governor in Wisconsin, and she's favored to win by 22 points. So even if the polls are off by their usual 13, she should still prevail tomorrow night. Democrats in the corporate Democrats are freaking out. She's a DSA person, a Democratic Socialist. Israel has decided to snub President Trump and his 15-point plan to disarm Hamas in Gaza. The Iranians are getting spicy about the Strait of Hormuz and basically insisting that they need they want the points that were agreed to in the memorandum of understanding that was negotiated a few months ago to be carried out. Something that I guess the U.S. hoped that they would just sort of forget about. And last and not least, we have Turkey has just signed a Article 5 NATO-style trilateral defense treaty, shades of 1913, with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. They say that the Iranians should not be concerned at all. I don't know. When someone tells me not to worry, I worry.
Well, Turkey and Iran traditionally have not gotten along very well with each other. So I would be concerned if I was the Iranians, if I have a belligerent jerk of a country on my western border and a unstable artificial construct on my eastern border. I would be somewhat concerned.
Yeah, I think there's due cause to be concerned, and I guess we are tentatively expecting Dr. Morandi to come on from Iran to fill us in on the latest from the war there. But that would not be during the 9 o'clock hour. That would be in lieu of the Q&A at 12 noon. So we'll keep you posted on that. Okay, that's just been confirmed. So We will be having a Q&A show. The Q&A show will happen on Wednesday, but not today. But nevertheless, please tune in live for breaking news from Iran on the ground there with Dr. Morandi. So that'll be an exciting guest to have. Jamarl Thomas, good morning.
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
I'm okay. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you after the weekend. Just bringing everyone up to speed as to what we're talking about and everything. Okay, so let's. And if you have questions,
I didn't know Morandi was a doctor.
Yeah, Morandi's going to be on. We're not doing Q&A 12 noon. Instead, we'll have Morandi. So we will.
No, I saw it. I just didn't know he was a doctor. I always call him professor.
Oh, well, a professor is a doctor, right?
Yeah, he is a doctor. Yeah, I just didn't know.
Yeah. So like Dr. Jill Stein, right? Well, no, she's a doctor. She's an MD?
Yeah, she's an actual doctor.
She's a doctor. Yeah,
Dr. Jill Biden.
Yes, exactly. Dr. Jill Stein, I think, is a PhD, right? So, all right. Well, I'm never going to come close to that. It took me 10 years to get a bachelor's, so that's why that stuff's confusing to me.
Anyway. I mean, to be honest, I was sick my entire 20s. Like from 17 up to 28, I was having like multiple surgeries a year, like back to back. I just could not get out of that period.
Oof.
So it wasn't until I was like 27, 28 where I started living my 20s.
It's like the lost years.
Yeah, but my 30s or my 20s, like that's when you are hanging out, going to clubs, women at the house. You're focused on this kind of maleness aspect of life.
Yeah, scamming on girls.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I got one here now. Later on tonight, we're gonna have a party. Hopefully, I can hook up with that chick at the party. Like it becomes that, right? That's your life. But it's life. It's what you do in
Sure.
your 20s. It's
No, I kind of have some feeling for that because I got expelled from college after my junior year. And
did you?
so, yeah, like Columbia threw me out. And, I'm kind of happy they did because, I was an engineering major and I really didn't like engineering and I would have never wanted to drive over a bridge that I designed. So, but the thing is, I was out of school then for 5 years. And
Uh,
no, is that right? Like longer than that? Yeah, like 6 years. Anyway, long story short, I ended up being a 28-year-old college senior when I went back. So I kind of had the lost years thing. And I
oh,
gotta
just
say though, 28-year-old college senior is going to rage more than a 20-year-old college senior. So, and
they
I
see
did.
the dying of the light. They can see
Yeah, I
it.
know.
It's like I gotta
Yeah,
get
there
this
was
out.
no dying of any light there, man. I was there closing out every bar and then some.
But that's my point. You can see it, right? At 28, you're like, there's a horizon. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get it now.
yeah,
I'm
that's
going
right.
now.
I mean, I was always conscious of it too because my dad got married when he was 31 to my mom, and so I had that like in the back of my mind, like, actually, he was 33, but I was like thinking, okay, so like, the good times are going to be over. I'll end up settling down. I've got to rage now while I can, So yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so what do we want to talk about? Oh yeah, by the way, if you have questions, comments, etc., please go ahead and put those comments into the live chat. If you're watching live on YouTube or Rumble, as we mentioned over like on Thursday and Friday, the show's having some financial challenges due to Rumble. So just a reminder that if you could see your way clear to becoming a subscriber or making a one-time donation, we really, 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 really need it and appreciate it more than ever. So I'm going to put up the membership
Yeah.
info for people who are on YouTube. Rumble is basically like cutting loose creators like us. We're going to stay on there, but they're not going to be remunerating us accordingly. Properly. We're going to get this a little big. If you're listening, here's the story. To become a tier 1 member on Rumble, costs $4.99. Maybe we should just make that an even $5. I kind of hate the 99-cent construct. But anyway, you'll have access to member-only videos. You'll get loyalty badges and emotes. I don't like to emote myself, but anyway, for $4.99, you can do that. Tier 2, $9.99 a month. You'll get tier 1 perks, and you get your name listed in the show ending credits. You've noticed those in the outro if you watch the show. And for $20 a month, $19.99, tier 3, you get everything that I mentioned before. Plus, you're going to get, and we are going to be doing this. We're going to schedule a regular time for this. You'll get a special hangout video call with Jamarl and me and Robbie, and you'll just hang and we'll shoot the shit and talk and whatever. And that's basically it. We're also developing stuff where you'll be able to get like maybe signed books by yours truly or even original cartoon art. So we're working on all that stuff. So maybe even bespoke cartoon art. If you were like, I want Ted drawing me riding a dragon or something, I mean, I can do that. All right. That said, all right, let's off to the races. Are we going to do the trilateral defense pact for Turkey? Are we going to do the Hamas plan that's been struck down by Israel? Are we going to do Wisconsin, or are we going to do Joe Biden, who is dying with the fading of the light?
I want to do Wisconsin.
All right, let's do Wisconsin. Okay, so the deal there is that Francesca Hong is the DSAer. She is almost certainly going to trounce her opponent tomorrow, whose name is David Crowley. He's a DNC establishment corporatist backed by the National Party. I'm feeling like the DNC, as usual, has not, they haven't learned their lessons, their many lessons. They did not learn from losing, from Hillary Clinton losing. They did not learn from Joe Biden having to drop out and Kamala Harris losing. They didn't lose. They have not learned from what happened in Michigan with Abdul al-Sayed and Haley Stevens. And here they go again. And all they're doing every time they do this, they're fighting a battle that you can't possibly win, which is about the stupidest thing that any human being can do. And on top of that, they're pissing off the base of their own party. but here we go again.
Why can't Trump pull out of Iran? Why can't he just pull out and say, all right, baby made, I'm out, I won, call it a day? And I would argue these things are the same. Like, meaning you've had a power establishment that has been placed for so long, and it has done what they've done, and that it's for various reasons within boundaries worked. Meaning they've come up with a model that they've effectively enacted for the last 30 or 40 years that for all intents and purposes have been able to minimize the impact of people who they would consider lefties, or, as what's her name? Deborah Wasserman Schultz made the point of saying, yeah, we have these super
delegates.
That's super delegates in order to keep out basically randos.
The riffraff.
Yeah, we don't want the riffraff coming into the party. So we need a way to make it look as if it's democratic while having structures in place that would effectively filter out people we don't necessarily like, people who are not in our brain trusts. Okay, well, if that's worked for a very long time, how do you immediately pivot? And more to the point, what do you pivot to when it's what you are? That's the issue. Like, meaning this is not an issue of people, of messaging. This is not like, well, we need to message to people better. It's not that. People got familiar with the lies that you're effectively selling from the standpoint of the party. The issue is who you are. That's the issue. It's like you're in a marriage with somebody, and it's like, okay, well, do I need to put on a wig? Do I need to go out with you? It's like, no. It's who you are. That's the issue. It's not accoutrements. It's not, that you chew gum. It's not that you smoke. It's who you are. And I guess the question becomes, how do you really deviate and change from that when the public has gotten a clear indication of what that is? Hence, Al Said, hence, Mamdani, hence, the woman in Wisconsin. I guess my point is, how do you pivot from that? How do you pivot from who you are? And I don't think you can. I think the issue is the party itself.
Well, in other words, the leadership of the party is constructed to be a corporatist, center-right, anti-socialist, anti-left,
Yes.
liberal in the sort of Cold War meaning of that word, construct and organization, and therefore, there's not enough room. There's no room for tolerance, much less allowing themselves to be taken over. Are they more likely? Are they more vulnerable to being taken over by force, the way that Trump conducted a hostile takeover of the GOP, than if they formed an alliance or an accommodation with the left? I mean, the left is between 50 and 70% of Democratic Party voters, right? So it ain't nothing. And these days, again, I think the center could hold its own if it posited some ideas, but it hasn't. I'm not even saying that they're positing bad ideas. These days, they're really not floating anything. There's nothing. There's no like, oh, here are our top 3 things that we want to do this year. There's nothing at all.
They look at Trump and they scream fire, and they expect everybody to run for the doors.
Well, that doesn't always work, though.
Yeah, that doesn't work now. It's gotten to, for God's sake, how long can you have a political philosophy about the opposition? Meaning your entire political disposition and philosophy for the last 6 years or so have been entirely around Trump. Nonstop.
Well, parenthetically, we should also address the fact that is currently, and this is a mistake, right? That's Trump's approach right now with the Democrats, right? He's like accusing them of being a bunch of communists. Yep. And it's like, well, again, I think that's part of the reason his polls are sinking fast, because he used to have ideas and policy planks, and now he doesn't. Kind of.
What were those? What were the ideas?
Well,
other than the culture of Trump,
there were tariffs were always front and center. He always said he was going to do that, right? No wars. That was always obviously that hasn't. Never mind the broken promise, right? That's a different question. But there was a promise in the same way that like Obama did promise a public option.
Building the wall. That was a big
building the wall. Yeah, that's true. That's promise.
And making Mexico pay for it.
Yeah, he promised to drain the swamp. So he had ideas in his first term before he bent before he got on both knees and started taking that sweet Zionist money for his legal
I
defense
thought
fund.
something else.
So
I thought something else was coming behind that, Robbie. On
Yeah,
both
me too.
knees,
Me
start
too. I
taking
was
that
like,
sweet Zionist. Okay, what's the word coming next?
I know. It's like first thing in the morning on a Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
So,
I mean, they don't offer anything, which is the issue. And they seem to believe and have gone with the idea that least worse is enough to get elected, meaning that they can make the argument that says, hey, we're least worse. And any competent mind knows that one penny is worth more than no pennies.
mhm.
And it's like, okay, yeah, dude, but at a certain point, that becomes insufficient as an argument, especially as it gets to the point of being worth nothing. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so let's go dangerously out on a limb and say Francesca Hong is going to be the governor nominee of the Democratic Party as of Wednesday morning, right? I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And
Yes.
now the thing is, obviously the geography is notable here, right? I mean, Wisconsin and Michigan are not only side by side, but those are the traditional historical heartland of the progressive movement in the United States, going back to figures like Robert La Follette and the sewer socialists, like the guy who was elected, the first socialist who was elected the mayor of a major city. And there were two House reps, one of whom, what I think was, if memory serves, was from Milwaukee, who became, who was the old socialist, the Socialist Party of America, the SPA. That was Eugene Debs' party.
Yeah.
Those people are all, I mean, it looks like I could see this spreading in the same way. Isn't it bizarre that the demographics of the country in that sense ideologically haven't really morphed that much since 1912? I mean, I could see this going to Minnesota next, right? Iowa, those were the places where that movement started. Farmers who were upset about being underpaid and having trouble making ends meet. It's rural populism is a fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah. And by the way, those block of states function in tandem with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, meaning where one goes, the other one seems to go with it. If you remember back during the race with Clinton, I think it was Clinton and Trump. Clinton apparently had never went to Wisconsin, and they started sending people at the last minute. And I remember being at work when the reporting was like, the Democrats have dispatched people to Wisconsin. And I'm thinking, it's the election day. What do you think you're doing on the election day? Like, if you haven't gotten them now, you're not going to get them. And yet they sent people there with the idea of somehow performing some kind of miracle. Well, obviously she lost Wisconsin. She lost all those states. All of them went to Trump in a block. They seem to function in tandem with one another.
They do.
And so, no, absolutely right. The fact
so, Jamarl, I have a story about that. So I had a friend who I can't do my usual, we'll call him so-and-so because his name is so-and-so. But I knew a dude, I can't out him because he's still involved in corporatist democratic politics, but he was way up in the food chain in the Hillary campaign based in Brooklyn in 2016. And there was a good reason she didn't go to Wisconsin. So most candidates, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, most candidates, when they visit a place, the tracking polls show an uptick after they visit. Voters are appreciative of that the candidate took the time to go and meet them. And usually, because most candidates are charming, they tend to be appealing to people. I had this phenomenon having drinks. Well, I had a drink and he didn't have a real drink with Orrin Hatch for 3 hours. I was like, I came away kind of liking him. And I was like,
really?
And I was kind of like, well, of course, it's his job to be likable, right? He's a politician. Right. And so, that's the effect that most politicians have. But Hillary Clinton did not have that effect. So this was a big secret of the 2016 campaign, that wherever she appeared, her tracking polls dropped after she appeared there.
She was that unlikable.
She was, to know her is to hate her. And that's how she was. Yeah, so that's why they didn't send her to Wisconsin, because they knew Wisconsin was in play. And they were afraid that she would have lost by more had she gone to Wisconsin.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, why was she unlikable like that? That's the part that was always interesting to me. Yes, the things that she said was often detestable, especially on the issue of Gaza.
Sure.
Which the younger generation got their own dose of Hillary Clinton from that alone, I would argue. like, because that was such a big issue. And you might have had a younger generation that wasn't necessarily entirely clear on who Clinton was, but became clear on who Clinton was during the issue with Gaza and the comments that she was making. I mean, but beyond that,
But that was later.
it wasn't really an issue.
No, it wasn't an
Before-
issue in 2016 at all.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it was something about her. Look, I've been in the room with Hillary Clinton a couple of times, and I can't say that I like hated her with like a seething rage. Like, you know how there's people like the hairs go up on
Yeah.
the back of your neck, and you just
Correct.
can't fucking stand them.
Right.
Okay, she wasn't like that for me, but it was definitely sort of a net negative. It's like if 10 is like I love you and a 1 is I despise you, it was like a 4, or a 4.2. It was just like, yeah, I'm not crazy about you. You're a little
Passive osmosis, it became a negative.
yeah. Like I think if you were to, yeah. I mean, she definitely doesn't have. She's missing charisma. She doesn't
Yep.
have it. She just doesn't. And it's like it's so intangible. I mean, who knows? Like why some people have it and other people don't have it. I've been in the
Yep.
room with Bill, and like everybody says, I mean, first of all, he has magic skills. I mean, he will remember you the rest of his life if you met you one time because he's like Rain Man. He's psychotic that way. But still, even aside from that, man, he's got those twinkly blue eyes, and you're just sort of like, and he's just having it. You know what it's like? It's like going to see a band, and they're having a good time. Like, and it's infectious. That's what he's like. He always looks like he's having a good time, and not
That's what
just
they say
when he's
about
at
him.
Epstein's Island.
Well, he's probably having a good time there, unfortunately, also. That's what everybody has described him as. They said it's magnetic. They say it comes off him in waves. I remember somebody told me a story where Bill Clinton was speaking to a gardener, and he was just sitting there having this conversation, and how the guy seemed to just love him. Like it comes off of him in waves.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, he says horrible things, and he was a horrible president in
He
the
was.
final analysis of it all, especially considering Glass-Steagall, the elimination of Glass-Steagall, elimination of welfare. I mean, you can go down the list, NAFTA, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah. But charisma, yes.
Crime Bill.
That's the other one. I mean, like he has done things that only Republicans could be like,
Bosnia.
could wish for.
Yeah. The only time we probably should have intervened somewhere, Rwanda, he was like, no interest.
Yeah. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think he said that was a regret or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, personal charisma matters.
The only congressman I ever met was Ryan Zinke, a congressman from Montana.
I know who that is.
So we have one congressman at the time because the population is under 1 million people. I wish you could go back there. Now, unfortunately, we have 2 congressmen. Anyway, I was working at Verizon, and he came in. He wanted to get a phone. He wanted to get the phone for free because I am Congressman Ryan Zinke.
Are you
Oh,
sure?
come on. Like a lot of people,
I kid you not.
But remember,
I kid you
when we
not.
first started with he might just be old, right? Like when they started doing cell phones, the cell phone used to be free.
Yeah, but I mean,
free.
but the thing is that no, he's a multimillionaire. So I was talking to him about it. He's just like, no, that's not going to happen. No, this is the price. It's like, of course, he's a really tall guy. He just looks down at me. He has his Navy SEAL pin on his lapel. Says, do you know who I am? I said, I know exactly who you are. You're a carpetbagger from California masquerading as a Montanan. Get out of my store.
Is that what you told him?
I did.
Oh, you don't believe? You don't
You're a
believe?
horrible employee. You are a horrible employee.
I straight up did. I said, you, sir, are a carpetbagger from California with your little house up in Whitefish. Why don't you go up there?
When
go
someone
back to your
asks,
people."
"Do you know who I am?" That's always like a trigger, though.
It is. It is. Because for one, it's like I'm supposed to acknowledge something of you.
Right.
Like I'm supposed to give a shit of
And
something
also,
about
like you're supposed to be getting special treatment.
you. Yeah. But
he
it's
was-
special treatment because you are somehow special, and like how dare you not know who I am? There was this YouTuber who was wearing like this pink suit and stuff like that. I forget his name. He's like flaming to the hilt. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that it's descriptive.
Right.
That's just his persona on
He
YouTube.
just was.
He
Yeah.
gets into a fist fight outside, literally is driving around in the car, chases a guy down, is screaming at the guy like, you don't know who I am, how dare you not know who I am? Like this nonsense. Like where do people get off with this idea set? It's just outrageous.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. Wait, Robbie, What the hell?
Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie. I stepped on your story.
Robbie, you have to. I need to hear the rest of the story. So
Yeah, you'd call him a carpetbagger.
yeah.
And what did he say?
Oh, Robbie, you're mute.
Yeah, I called him a carpetbagger. He demanded to speak to the store manager. His name was Jeff, and Jeff comes up and says, "Oh, hi there, Congressman Zinke." He's just a Republican. It's like, Robbie, what did you do? I said, I told him what he was. I said, he's a carpetbagger. He wants a free phone. I said, if you want to reach into your pocket and buy him one, feel free, but I'm not going to give him anything on the company dime. So he can afford it. I said, if everyone else comes into the store has to buy their phone, why is the carpetbagger from California any different? And I looked at Ryan Zinke. I said, by the way, do you know who I am? I'm the guy who just told you no.
You know what's funny about that too? To be fair, he did ask you, "Do you know who I am?" And you did tell him.
The answer was yes. You did know who he was.
Well, I had a name badge right there on my shirt and stuff. So it's just like it's obvious who I am. So it's like I am the guy who told you no.
Well, I'm pointing out that he did ask you. Like, meaning it wasn't like you just gave him that information randomly. He asked you, "Do you know who I am?" And you said yes, and you accurately described who he was. You're a carpetbagger from California,
which is exactly what he is. I mean, he has a house up in Whitefish, so he has residence, but he spends almost all of his time in California. To which case, I say that if you are not a full-time resident of a state, you should not be allowed to represent that state.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. That should be easy.
That's the whole point. So if you're
I couldn't agree more.
Especially if you're talking to a guy from the South, I will call you a carpetbagger if that's what you are.
Love that. That's awesome. That is epic.
Hey, by the way, before we move on, and Robbie, I'd be interested in your opinion about this too. What do you guys think about the little internet kerfluffle about AOC freezing her eggs? AOC posted video of her. Yeah, AOC just posted video of her squeezing her tummy and giving herself a shot hormone shot so she could freeze her eggs. People, mostly conservatives, have been giving her a hard time on. I mean, look. If you post a video of this, you're inviting criticism, so you don't have any right to complain about it. You're open to judgment. Anyway, people were pointing out, like, she's almost 37 years old. She's been partnered with the same dude for years. Why not just get married and have kids now? I mean, my question, I was reading them and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, they hate her because she's, a DSAer, but yeah, they got a point, right? I mean, it's kind of like, we know her trajectory. She's not likely to be less busy when she's 44 years old than she is now at almost 37, right? I mean, she's going to be running for Senate or president. I mean, her life path is headed to having less time to being a mom than more time.
Why don't you just have the baby now?
Well, that's, I guess, my question. Yeah.
And more to the point, why are you showing me this?
Oh, yeah. To be relatable, the internet likes that shit.
Is that what it is? Like, popping out eggs is relatability.
It's not to be.
I mean, I don't mean that bad, poorly.
For women of a certain age who are like, there's a sex recession. People who are not, people aren't partnered. They're working. They're getting married later. So, and there's anxiety among women who are like, oh, I'm not going to be able to have kids. And but there's this option. The clock doesn't have to run out when I'm 34 or 40 or whatever.
I think it's a completely different thing.
But the clock does run out.
Yeah, but I guess my thing, look, it's obviously it's her choice. She can do whatever she wants.
100%.
If she wants to pop out eggs on TV, God bless her for it, I suppose. I guess but I agree with you on this. It's like, okay, so she's not ready to have a baby now. And what is her thinking? She's going to have a baby at 50? Is that the thought?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. And look, I had a kid when I was 40. And I feel like, honestly, I wish I'd had him earlier. I couldn't. I had a lot of setbacks earlier that prevented me from doing that. But I just couldn't afford it and stuff. But but basically, if I died 80, then my kid will have only had me for 40 years. I mean, so obviously if I'd had a kid at 50, I mean, I think about Tony Randall. I mean, Tony Randall was the Odd Couple guy. I think he was 80 or something, or 82 when he had a baby. And yeah. I'm like, first of all, I thought you were gay. And B, like, your kid's never going to know you, right? I mean, you're never going to see your kid graduate from elementary school, much less high school or college. I mean, that just seems sad for the kid.
True. I agree with you. But it does extend, apparently, that it may extend age to having kids later in life, meaning it forces the parent to actually be there, to be younger, et cetera, et cetera.
But we're not living longer. We're living less. We're living shorter lives in the United States.
In the U.S. I guess my feeling is, well, she's not going to live a shorter life. That's usually relegated to people who are impoverished.
Right.
But true, you're right. We're living shorter lives in the U.S. I don't know if this is a generational gap thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't have TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and social media in that way when I grew up. And so maybe that's a feature of the current generation where
I can't say that I'm sad about that that I missed that as a kid.
I don't think that's what it is. I think what this is signaling for women that you should put off maybe getting married, definitely put off having kids, put off having a family, and chase that corporate career because Bank of America needs you. And if you start having kids, then that's going to set your career back. So, honey, go chase that pot of gold.
Well, for one, if that's true, that's not her fault. I mean, that society is organized that way. I mean, even women getting paid less, one of the arguments that they make for it is, well, women want to have kids. And so, I don't want to get saddled with this pregnant woman if she has a child on our watch. Hence, corporate America goes with this idea of basically what you just articulated. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's true, though. I mean, I don't know if that's what she's going for. I mean, there are things that are just life.
I doubt that she's thinking that. Yeah.
Well, she can afford it. She's a millionaire. I mean, she's sucking on the tit there in D.C. She's perfectly fine. She's doing this. The reason why she's doing this, in my opinion, is that she's trying to signal to her base, you can wait.
But everything is not a signal. Do you believe that there's some things of life that are just of life that a person does? Like, meaning, if I'm in my political career, I'm a woman, I want to get my eggs. So I'm going to do my eggs, but I'm going to show it to the public. Okay, is that me signaling that women should do this? Or is this me just living my life?
She's being an influencer, but she's a political influencer. Right? That's what this is. It's like living your life in front of a camera. That's what they do.
Yeah. That's the whole point. That's why people do it. And the reason they're called influencers is because they influence people. She influences people for her corporate backers. She wants people working to the point where they are about to fall over and die before they consider having a kid, so that way they can keep getting taxed out the gills to fund these stupid foreign wars.
I don't think that's for a minute that's what she has in mind.
That's a hell of a cynical interpretation of her just popping out eggs on TV.
I'm a very cynical person.
I just don't think she's that deep, right? I don't think it's like, oh, this is my plan for the Trilateral Commission. I just don't think so. I mean, I think it's just literally like, this will be interesting, and I'll be in the center of the conversation, which is what you always want in politics. It's why she's got millions of Twitter followers and I don't. And I think that's it, right? I mean, but I just think it's like, it's a little bit. The weird part for me is like, if she was 26 and was like, I'm going to freeze my eggs, I'm not ready. I get it, But at 37, I hate to say this, like, you should probably be taking the eggs that you froze before and implanting those and using those now. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like you're already out of time. I mean, there's a quantum drop in fertility at the age of 34 for women. And it's like, and by the time you're 41, basically forget it. There's like a 4% chance that you'll get pregnant naturally after the age of 41. And I don't know about you, Jamarl. I'm not betting on any 4% chances on anything.
My ex-wife got knocked up at, 38, 39? My cousin got knocked up at 40, I think.
First time?
She's just having a kid. But like you point out, that's rare. That's
Yeah, it's rare. I mean, and like, look, basically, you can have kids in your 30s, but I mean, and yes, there are, exceptions. And I mean, there's literally a list on Wikipedia by name of every woman who's ever had a kid over the age of 45. Okay. So
really?
that's how rare it is. Okay. Like naturally not using IVF. Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I mean, they think, right. I don't know, whatever. I mean, it's like, I'm a guy talking about like women's choices, but
women's pregnancies.
But it's weird. But okay. Anyway, I thought it was worth noting. All right, so we should talk about. Should we talk about Biden I mean, and get that out of the way.
Yeah, let's talk about Biden. My mom
Okay.
sent me a text message saying, "Hey, Biden's cancer has spread,
Mhm.
and he's in a lot of pain from the cancer effectively spreading."
Mhm.
I have a relative that has been diagnosed with cancer recently, and he has just started his chemo. They're effectively working on him in that sense. And I don't, under normal circumstances, I don't wish harm on anybody. I don't have good feelings for Joe Biden. And from my point of view, Joe Biden was, and yes, I'm talking about what Joe Biden did because I'm putting it in a context in the way I see what's happening, because I don't want, you can say Jamarl is a monster. Fair enough. But it's coming through a lens. Joe Biden is directly responsible for millions of people being killed in the wars in Ukraine. Wars, by the way, that I would like to point out that the public itself didn't want, that was effectively engineered, even going back to 2008 when William Burns made the memo basically pointing out, if the United States continue to push in this particular direction, we're going to create a civil war that Russia does not want to get involved in, but they will. Basically, they don't have a choice to do so. And it still, at no point, didn't stop Joe Biden from being a lunatic on the issue of Ukraine, even to the point of inflaming the war and doing any and everything in his power to keep that war going on. Even to the point of Boris Johnson jumping in and scuttling a deal that would have ended the war. 1 million people dead later, all sorts of destruction and everything else, not to mention the civilians killed or the civilians press ganged. We are still fighting a war 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I blame Joe Biden for it. He was an entity of state, or he was, let's say, head of state at the time, true. But that doesn't absolve him from his role in that. I feel some kind of way about that, which, again, informs my point of view of him having cancer, his body riddled with cancer, and him being in pain from his body being riddled with cancer. I don't care. That's brutal, but it's just true. I don't know, have another way to explain it. I find him a horrible human being. But give me your take. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll back away.
The little boys getting shot in the groin or being blown up by bombs and dismembered by American munitions, those people are suffering too.
Yes,
so,
Israel. We're talking about Gaza in this case.
Yeah, 100%.
Again, he was a full proponent for that one also. Yeah.
I wish him nothing but the slowest, most painful, agonizing death that he can possibly have. And then when he gets to hell, he'll have that for all of eternity. Good riddance.
And by the way, lied. Like, meaning over and over again, as head of state, Joe Biden would even ignore provisions of our own laws as he allowed Netanyahu and Israel to commit more murder. One of the things that they pointed out at the end of Joe Biden's term was that they were shocked. They was like, thank God Joe Biden was president, because he allowed Israel to do any and everything that they wanted. And they even pointed out how they thought at some point the U.S. would pull the reins, and Joe Biden never did. Every time that Joe Biden said, well, we're in negotiations, he lied. Every time he claimed that the U.S. was going to get involved, he lied. He allowed the mass murder and slaughter, not to mention rape, of men, women, and children to the 100,000 number. Yeah, fuck that guy.
I agree with every single word both of you guys just said, and I'm not going to undermine or diminish any of those. I totally agree. I want to add to that, the fact that I have some cognizance of what is involved here with this disease, because my father-in-law died of exactly this. He had prostate cancer. It's a slow-moving thing, and eventually it did start to metastasize and got into his bones, and he was ravaged by pain until finally he basically was zombified by drugs, and before he died. Right? It was horrible, and I won't get into the details, but it sucked hard. Now, the thing is, with Joe Biden, there is no evidence, even anecdotal, that he was ever conflicted or tortured about the decisions that he actively made to kill hundreds of thousands of people, basically just for fun. I think about, say, we know LBJ, who similarly deserved no sympathy because of his actions during the Vietnam War, nevertheless was tormented and found himself at the bottom of a bottle, mourning not only the dead Americans, but also the dead Vietnamese, and kind of just thinking that he was trapped and couldn't figure a way out. Although, frankly, there was a way out, but he just didn't want to pull that trigger. But at least he felt bad about it. Okay. That's something. There's no evidence that Joe Biden has ever felt bad or regretful for any of the shitty stuff he did from the beginning of his career, by being against court-ordered busing for school desegregation, and basically, building his career on racism, to the crime bill, which was a fucking catastrophe. It not only was evil, but it didn't work. And, everything else that this guy did, he was, with the possible exception of accidentally coming out in favor of gay marriage, which he doesn't have a lot to point to in his career that he ever did right. And he had very few regrets. And I, as a person who grew up Catholic, the main defining aspect of Catholicism is penance. Like, we're all sinners, we all fuck up, but when you recognize it, you're supposed to go and try to fix it the best you can. And certainly you're supposed to feel sorry. And this guy never did, right? And there's, he's had biographies written about him. He's been interviewed by countless journalists. He's never expressed it behind the scenes. So, I mean, to me, that also enters into the equation. He was a prick. And even on a one-to-one level, think about what he did to Anita Hill.
Yes.
And if you just go watch the HBO movie Confirmation, Greg Kinnear plays an amazing Senator Joe Biden. Well worth seeing. But he was a prick. He was an asshole. And prick asshole doesn't deserve, this kind of the only reason people are saying this shit is because they either liked his politics or because he was the president and somehow we're supposed to feel bad because the president is dying. By the way, another thing, and I'm throwing it back to you guys. I'm pissed off here because starting in 2020, I was railing about how Joe Biden in 2020 was too old and too senile to be president of the United States, and that he was, that it was irresponsible of him to run for office. And then I was yelling twice as loud when he announced in 2023 that he wanted to have a do-over and do it again. All right, if he'd gotten his way, he would be now the sitting president of the United States dying in office, okay? Which is exactly what he should not have been doing. All the people around him, they knew that. They saw that. This was a very old man in the final chapter of his life, and they fucking decided to stick him up America's collective asshole anyway. Fuck the DNC, fuck the Democrats the corporate Democrats who did this, and fuck Joe Biden.
Joe Biden was dying of cancer in office the first time around also.
That's true.
I don't believe for a moment that it's, hey, we
prostate
just found
cancer is very slow moving. My heretofore mentioned father-in-law, he had it for 10 years before he killed him. It's slow.
Yeah, they knew. I strongly believe that they knew. And then to wait for like a month or so out of office and be like,
that would explain the foot thing, right? Like, remember where his foot sort of just shattered and they blamed the dog?
It wasn't the dog. It probably was the cancer.
Yeah.
That's the rub, right? And that's the thing that they were hiding. And it makes it even worse, the fact that, if I'm right.
And they tried to run him for re-election.
Think about that shit.
Right.
Like, it's very possible that they knew. And it didn't stop them at all from running him for re-election because they never thought Kamala Harris could win. Right. I strongly suspect that what they were trying to do was wedge her in office. They were, basically Joe Biden wins, then he steps down, he hands it over to the black woman. You got the first black woman president because she couldn't do it on her own merits. I strongly suspect that what they wanted to do was wedge her in office.
However, if he had announced right after the midterms in January 2023, if he had announced, I'm not running again, and I'm going to let Kamala shine, she's going to be the acting president for the next 2 years, I mean, it would have given her a chance.
Yeah, and a boost.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, she would have had the reins of power for at least 2 years going into
Americans would have gotten used to watching her walk into a room and hearing "Hail to the Chief." I mean, that matters. That helps.
Yeah, agree. No, I agree. I agree with everything you said. It was it's a scandal of epic proportions that they, I guess because time is moving much faster, get swept under the rug. But that should not get swept under the rug, what they did.
I mean, it's a massive scandal. I mean, it's like, I mean, look, on the old show, we had Jake Tapper come in and talk about his book about this, right? I mean, and you could tell.
Yeah, Jake Tapper on the show? Are you shitting me? Seriously?
He'll come back on. We can have him.
Okay.
And maybe after Biden dies, we'll bring him back on. I mean, that's going to be soon, right? I mean, that's going to be a matter of months, and I wonder what kind of effect it'll have on the midterms. I mean, I mean, I bet he's going to be gone by the end of the year.
I don't know. I mean,
but,
I'm not gonna.
but you can see the pain on Jake Tapper's face. He was kind of like, sort of, just like, oh God, this is like, it's so bad. And, the book makes it very clear how bad it was and how they all knew. But, the look on his face shows it went all the way to the top.
If we get Tapper on the show again, can we play the video or clip of Tapper saying that Joe Biden is too old? It's like, Tapper, when you said this, what did you mean by this?
Yeah, well, he has addressed that, but yeah. He has. We have some comments here.
Okay.
PW Walker, thanks for the $1. IVF is a scam that separates wealthy women from their money. I wouldn't be surprised if the IVF company paid AOC to do this. I'm even more cynical than Robbie. Yeah, you are. I mean, it is a multi-billion-dollar business for sure.
It is a multi-billion-dollar business. I don't think they need AOCs.
I mean, it does work too. I mean, full disclosure,
and it works. Yeah, it's not just a scam.
My mom had. There's a Freudian slip. My ex-wife had our kid at the age of 40 through IVF, right? First time out. So
I didn't know that.
So Alexander Berg, thanks so much for the very generous $50. Biden has cancer. I don't like the guy, but I wish he got proper pain relief. Nobody should be in pain. Well, that's a good point. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous. My father-in-law was not in pain once they got him the proper meds. I mean, they doped him up on morphine. Deep Green VO, Jamarl, the way you reaped Lady G's soul. Genocide Joe needs that and then some.
He's not dead yet.
Not dead yet. Thanks for the $20, Dead Meme Club. Happy Monday, Festina Lente. Thanks for the $20 from BH Longbolt. Bravo. Okay, so all right, we got.
Yeah, they like us being hateful and mean.
we can do more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could be worse. That's one of the worst qualities of the internet, right? It's like they cheer you on being an asshole.
But I mean, the truth is, look, I don't believe in this whole "don't speak ill of the dead" thing. I mean, and here's the thing: when you're at the end of your life and when you die, that's when your entire life is assessed, if it is assessed at all. That's when people are thinking up your memorial. It's people writing your obituaries. They're trying to figure out, what meaning you had, whether you were a net positive or a net negative to the world. And, they try to assess it. They judge your life like in the movie. And, this is the time, right? We look back and it's like, was the world better off for Joe Biden having lived? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people would be alive today if Joe Biden had never lived.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, agreed. I mean, people can make the argument that there would always be some, I don't know, avatar to accept some particular place in empire as the empire goes about its affairs. And if it wasn't Joe Biden, it would be somebody else. That may or may not be true. But the reality of it is Joe Biden was the one at the helm, in some cases making these decisions and in other cases defending these positions.
Totally.
So, yeah, agree. I agree with you.
Well, also, he used to take showers with his daughter. I mean, the dude is a complete creep. So that gets conveniently forgotten. No, she wrote about it. She, being his daughter, wrote about it in her diary.
That's true.
So, I mean, let's not pretend this guy is a good guy. And I've been taken to task about saying what I said about Joe Biden. So that's not very Christian of me. That one of the tenets of Christianity is justice is a thing. If you reap the wind, you sow the whirlwind. You reap what you sow. Now, that being said, Joe Biden could save his immortal soul today if he was able to show an ounce of humility, get on his knees and ask the Lord Jesus Christ to forgive him of his sins and save his soul. The problem is that he's too proud to do it.
I don't know if I see. I mean, Robbie, before I let you go, quick 30-second answer to this question.
Sure.
Don't you think it's kind of a cheat? Like, okay, so you can be like Hitler, and then you're in the bunker. The Soviets are a block away. And you're suddenly like, I repent. God, I'm really bad. Get out of jail free card. Straight to heaven. Really?
That's all it takes. But you've got to have. So in order to get saved, here's where the Catholic Church kind of gets it wrong. They teach us you got to be baptized and all this other stuff. None of that gets you saved. What gets you saved is admitting that you are a sinner. Everyone has sinned. Every single one of us has sinned. And what you have to do is that you have to show contrition, and you have to ask to be saved.
Right,
You have
that's what I
to.
wanted to know.
That's it.
All right,
To answer your question, that is it. But that
That's
takes
it.
humility.
It seems like all right. Well, I guess maybe
Well,
it's
that's
too
why
much to ask from Joe
Well, that's
Biden.
why people reject Christianity. It's too easy because people think there's something we have to do on our end. There's nothing we can do on our end. None of us is good enough. That's relying on your own righteousness.
By
It's
the way,
our righteousness that gets us saved.
Manchild, thank you so much for bringing this up, and thanks for the $1. How about Glitch McConnell coming back to life?
Yeah.
He lives.
And that's something. Because I kept putting out pictures. And it's like, okay, what is this? Right? AI can make a Mitch McConnell that looks exactly like a Mitch McConnell that you're sending me in a picture. So I don't necessarily know. And there's something to be said about whether or not something needs to be enacted where you can't just sit in a convalescent home for 2 or 3 months and still collect a paycheck.
Don't you remember? Do you remember that Congress lady from Texas about a year ago who was like, the speaker was like, "Oh shit! Like, yeah, where is she? I haven't seen her." It turned out she was in a nursing home dying for like a year. They didn't know where she was. It was like, I guess when there's 454 of you, it's easy to lose track, right? But
that's insane, though. That meaning nobody can do that. No. Nobody else can do that. They work so well.
No, if you work at Dairy Queen and you don't show up for like a day, I got fired from a job for not, and I had the day off, but they claimed I hadn't taken it off, and for one day they fired me for not showing up to work. It wasn't even legit. But one day,
that's real life, right?
Like if you're arrested and you're in the clink without access to your phone, so you can call your boss and say like, and make up some lie like, "Oh, my mom died" or something. If you're probably going to be, you probably have no job when you get out the next day, right?
That's your go-to. My mom died.
Well, my mom did lie. My mom has died, so I could use that one now.
Yeah, that's a rough one. But obviously, they should be representing their state, not sitting in a nursing home or convalescent home or anywhere else. And if you are in a nursing home, maybe you should have somebody else doing the job. Like the idea that these people are so old that they're dying in office is...
Or like Dianne Feinstein, who was basically dead in office.
Yep.
She was like a scarecrow. She was like stuffed with straw. It was bizarre.
Sitting there at her desk. You come in.
She was like Captain Pike. All right, what the fuck? All right, we got one more. We're going to be doing the Middle East with Dr. Morandi at 12 noon. But, okay, we did predict this. Let's get to this first. The Trump announced to great personal fanfare about a week and a half ago that the Strait of Hormuz was going to reopen. Oh, sorry. I got to talk about Hamas.
Sorry.
So
that it was open.
But I want to go back to Hamas. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So he said, like, Hamas is going to disarm entirely, and once they give up their last pea shooter, then at that point the IDF will start to think about beginning to withdraw from Gaza. And we both said, like, that's ridiculous. That is an agreement that makes no sense at all. There's no fucking way Hamas or anyone else would ever agree to that. And in fact, it turns out they didn't. And also, Israel isn't either. So, yeah, I mean, it was just ridiculous. It made no sense from anybody's point of view. And of course, it just isn't true.
Well, it's funny that Israel, sometimes they trip me out about, like, basically you have a deal that is weighed 99-1 in favor of the Israelis. And Israel is like, yeah, no. Starts bombing within a few hours of the deal. Meaning you get everything that you want. And
they're maximalist.
Yeah, because they can be maximalists. Because the moment that they told Trump to F off, the United States changed the agreement to make it more in line with Israel, in which case Israel still said no. Meaning like, that wasn't the deal originally. It wasn't that Hamas was supposed to just hand over all of its weapons and there were things that Israel was also supposed to do before Hamas did that. And then immediately the U.S. rewrites the bill to make it as if Hamas needs to do pretty much everything, like lay down, face on the ground, arms out, and then we'll consider it. It's like, okay, you're changing the deal according to your own whims. and Israel's not going to accept it in any case. Like, there's nothing that Trump could write, every Hamas member shoots themselves on blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait a minute, what? Are they shooting themselves in the morning? Or evening? Because they got things to do at night. Like, meaning there's nothing that you can do to get a deal in this case from the standpoint of the U.S. and Israel, because they know they don't need to accept it. Netanyahu told Trump no on his 15-point plan. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal post or the article where they said Trump is looking for an off-ramp. Donald Trump doesn't know what to do. He's pissed off, swearing at people. He's yelling at Hegseth, who, to his credit, turned around and blamed his subordinate. He's stuck, and he knows it. And the moment that Donald Trump sends his, what did you call it, kind of messaging or partial negotiations or semi-negotiations?
Yes.
Those were like letters or messages, like through intermediaries, where Iran would send something, U.S. may send something, et cetera, et cetera. Iran solidified its demands. We need you to implement the MOU. We need,
as you signed and agreed to. Yeah.
Exactly. If you want to end the war, give us the billions that you owe us, release our frozen assets, give us reparations. We need you to move your military hardware out of the way. Like, meaning they become maximalists on their demands because they fully understand the context of the situation.
I think the Iranians fully understand the context, and they understand the Americans. The opposite is not true.
Yes. And so you get Trump rejected on all accounts. Iran rejects him.
It's
Israel
so humiliating. And by the way, I mean, this has to have an impact on his support among his core supporters, right? I mean,
you would think,
just because it's like, his whole like really macho, like I get my way, I always win vibe, but that's just not true. I mean, the man's obviously flailing and just making up, as you would say, nonsense. And it's like, come on. I mean, you can't keep, even if you're looking for a strong man, well, that's not a strong man.
No, he's failing across the board. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not, the hype man thing is always interesting to me because it's like, he's obviously full of it. Like, you're finding somebody who's a narcissist in and of itself, which is kind of weird and wild to me that that's the guy that the people would effectively run behind. But more to the point, failing at everything. He failed at his businesses. He failed at any kind of peace deal. He failed in the war in Iran. He failed to destroy the state of Iran. Like, meaning over and over again. Hell, he even failed against Ansar Allah in Yemen when the United States went for that escapade trying to pacify the Yemenis, in which case the U.S. eventually just pulled out, stopped, and said, just don't hit our ships. You're fair game. You can hit Israel all you want. Like, I don't know. If you're looking for somebody who's succeeding, this is not the person.
Totally. So Professor Morandi coming up at 12 noon. A couple of comments that we'll ask the good professor about this trilateral defense pact and the Strait of Hormuz situation and everything else. Couple of things. Okay, so horses are people. Thanks for the $1. I firmly believe that Joe Biden is just an empty skin suit who's continually possessed by different demons. And along the same lines, Manchild, thanks for the $1. Jesus titty fucking Christ said, bless those who curse them and pray for their enemies rather than wishing them harm. Hail Satan. Okay. All right. So with that, let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz, right? I mean, same thing, right? I mean, so
but that trilateral pact, the Mecca pact, it's not aimed at Iran. I don't think it is.
Right. It's not. No, that's what they're saying. But we're going to have to talk about, like, how are the Iranians viewing it? Strait of Hormuz, Iran's now currently saying, like, the world's going to have to wait about 6 months to see that, maybe, possibly.
Depending on Trump.
So, depending on Trump. So, are we going to see $8 a gallon gas soon, I guess?
Oh, that's going to be interesting. I mean, look, what they're saying is basically straightforward, right? Leave us to our devices. You've been attacking us. Pay us war reparations. Can you ever see the U.S. doing that, by the way?
I think the only thing that, like, is a throwaway for the Iranians is the war reps, because they can get it from the tolls.
True. It'll take a while, but true. I mean, if they charge like 7% for every,
they can throw that one away. They can throw that one away. They can give that away. But the rest of it, no, I don't see the Americans doing it. It's also very, like, early 20th century, right? Like,
but how do you stop? I mean, the U.S. can just stop attacking. It doesn't mean that Iran stops. Nor do their X Factor stop Ansar Allah, who immediately after the Mecca Pact was signed, attacked Saudi Arabia. It's like immediately within an hour or so. They just hit them immediately. And they've been hitting them constantly. this is an X factor for Iran. This is like Israel for the U.S. on some level, where Iran can say, "Look, we don't control them; they do whatever they want."
Right.
Yeah, but they just keep hitting Saudi ships and Saudi bases and airports and stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna before we're running into overtime here. I just got to say, like, if Trump wants an off ramp, and we're talking about the DNC and all that, like, you gotta, survival goes to those who can pivot, right? You gotta pivot. You gotta when you fuck up, you just gotta cut your losses and go. Anyway, gotta go. I'll see you at 12 noon in a couple hours. I hope everybody joins us. Otherwise, for the rest of you, see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Bye.
Bye-bye.